dreams make good stories. But everything important happens when we're awake. Because that's when we make things happen.
Movies Inside Out presents Dune is an epic science fiction film by Denis Villeneuve. Released in the fall of 2021, the movie became the first truly successful adaptation of Frank Herbert's cult novel, marking the beginning of a new exciting franchise. Watch our new video to learn more about the production of this fascinating epic about the world of the future. The creation story. The story of Dune began back in 1965 when Frank Herbert published his eponymous science fiction novel. Many producers sought to acquire the rights to adapt the book, but soon faced various difficulties due to the vastness and scale of the narrative. Yet, in the 1970s, director Alejandro Jodorowsky decided to create a 14-hour psychedelic space opera based on the novel. But after 5 years of preparation, the project was cancelled. Just imagine the director's face when it happened. In 1984, David Lynch released his version of Dune, which failed at the box office and outraged fans of the novel with its overly frivolous treatment of the source material. Lynch later called the film his big failure, explaining that he hadn't had the access to the final cut. Despite the complexity of the source material, filmmakers kept trying, and in 2000, the miniseries Dune aired, followed by Children of Dune in 2003, based on the subsequent books in the series. In 2008, Paramount Pictures began developing a new feature film adaptation, but 3 years later, they halted its production. Finally, in November 2016, the rights to adapt the novel were acquired by Legendary Pictures. Interestingly, shortly before this, director Denis Villeneuve expressed a desire to adapt Dune as he had been a fan of the novel since childhood, and as a teenager had created storyboards for his dream version of Dune. However, the director felt he lacked experience with science fiction and decided to first practice on films like Arrival and Blade Runner 2049. In December, the studio began negotiations with Villeneuve to direct the film, and in February 2017, his appointment was officially confirmed. In April 2017, Eric Roth, John Spates, and Villeneuve began writing the screenplay. The director said he planned to adapt the novel into 2 feature films, as the original book contained too many important details. By the way, his wish was confirmed by a contract with the studio, but the producers did not rush to develop the second film, hoping to make a final decision after seeing the audience's reaction to the first part. Actually, it was a grand deception. I was expecting a full-fledged Dune, but at the end, they were like, "No, kiddo, that was only the first part. See you in 2020-something." Despite the desire to stay true to the source material, Villeneuve significantly simplified many of the novel's dialogues, believing that too lengthy lines would not allow the characters to express their emotions. The director admitted to sacrificing the intellectual depth of Herbert's book in favor of emotional aspects. Denis Villeneuve also mentioned that he did not intend to rely on the concepts of Lynch and Jodorowsky, as his vision was different from their ideas. The director decided to focus on some topics relevant to modern audiences, paying special attention to issues of coming of age and the overuse of resources on Earth.
Each one of these drinks every day the equivalent of 5 men. 20 palm trees. 100 lives.
Should we remove them? Save the water?
No.
Casting. Villeneuve began casting by selecting the actor for the role of Paul Atreides. He wanted to find a person with an old soul in the body of a teenager, and stated that he was considering only Timothée Chalamet. According to Villeneuve, his adaptation might not have happened if Chalamet had refused to participate in the project, as there were no alternative candidates. Believe it or not, during one of the early shooting days, the director even cried tears of joy while watching Timothy's performance, as he saw that he had made the right choice. By the way, Chalamet had previously unsuccessfully auditioned for a role in Villeneuve's film Prisoners, and had since been eager to collaborate with the director. Next, Rebecca Ferguson joined the cast as Lady Jessica, Paul's mother. Initially, the actress declined Denis' offer because she felt that his character was too similar to her previous work in the Mission Impossible franchise. However, after reading the novel and getting a closer look at Villeneuve's ideas, she changed her mind. The selection of actors for supporting roles was managed by casting director Francine Maisler. She gathered about 50 audition tapes and presented them to Villeneuve for the final selection. After reviewing all the candidates, the director called Dave Bautista and offered him the role of Glossu Raban. The actor was a big fan of Villeneuve and was honored that he was the first to contact him. Also, the director wanted Stellan Skarsgård to play Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, as he found the actor's appearance frightening enough to portray such a terrifying character. Later, Denis personally negotiated with Charlotte Rampling, offering her the role of Gaius Helen Mohiam, and she agreed because she liked Villeneuve's style. It's worth mentioning that Rampling auditioned for the role of Lady Jessica in Jodorowsky's unrealized adaptation. As for Oscar Isaac, when he learned about the start of the film production, he reached out to the director first, confessing his love for the book and expressing his eagerness to work with him. Villeneuve considered his candidacy and later approved him for the role of Leto Atreides. Zendaya auditioned for the role of Chani along with 5 other actresses, but the filmmakers thought that she had better chemistry with Chalamet than the others. I bet it's because of the resemblance to Tom Holland. Then, Villeneuve contacted Javier Bardem, offering him the role of Stilgar, and Josh Brolin, who portrayed Gurney Halleck, joked that before agreeing to take part in the project, he pretended to carefully read the script. Also, without hesitation, David Dastmalchian joined the cast, landing the role of Pieter de Vries. In March, more actors joined the team: Jason Momoa, who was cast as Duncan Idaho, Stephen McKinley Henderson as Thufir Hawat, Chang Chen as Dr. Wellington Yue, and Benjamin Clementine as the Herald of the Change. In July 2019, it was announced that the director decided to flip the gender of Dr. Lyot Kynes, who was a male character in the book, and eventually invited Sharon Duncan Brewster to play the role. Interestingly, despite Villeneuve's desire to faithfully translate Frank Herbert's story onto the big screen, he decided to change the plot arcs of some characters, making them deeper and more multidimensional. For example, Lady Jessica's backstory came to include a military background.
Why didn't you say you were a weirding woman and a fighter?
Conversation ran short.
And Vladimir Harkonnen transformed from a stereotypical villain into a complex antagonist. The filming process. Dune began filming on March 18, 2019 at Origo Studios, one of the largest film studios in the world located in Budapest. Many crew members had previously worked with Villeneuve on Blade Runner 2049, and it was initially assumed that Roger Deakins would be the cinematographer. However, he left the project at the end of 2018. Eventually, his role was filled by Greig Fraser. In fact, the latter had to engage in sports to be able to hold the massive IMAX cameras for extended periods. The director planned to use green screens only if there was no other way and asked the team to build as many practical sets as possible. He believed the natural environment would help the actors better portray their characters. In addition to studio work, the team also traveled to distant locations, the main one being Wadi Rum, Jordan's desert known for its stunning landscapes. By the way, lots of epic movies were filmed there, including Lawrence of Arabia, The Martian, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. The work on the latter movie almost disrupted the shooting of Dune, but Villeneuve managed to negotiate with colleagues to use the locations alternately. To recreate the planet Caladan, the team traveled to the Norwegian peninsula of Stad, while the appearance of Arrakis was created with the help of the landscapes of the Liwa Oasis located near Abu Dhabi. Villeneuve wanted the ornithopter to look like a dragonfly and a helicopter at the same time, while still looking realistic and fitting into the retro-futuristic world of Dune. For the shooting, the crew designed 2 functional models with opening doors and interior cabins. They weighed over 11 tons and were transported to filming locations with cargo planes. To make the models fly, the production crew used cranes, moving them in the needed direction. Villeneuve noted that despite the complexity of using ornithopters in filming, their presence was useful for the whole team. Villeneuve also meticulously approached the fictional culture of Arrakis, represented by the stunning interiors of the Great Palace. For example, a huge fresco depicting a prehistoric sandworm was meant to look as if it had been created by the Fremen themselves. Of course, visual effects were still necessary. More than 2,000 shots were filmed using sand screens. Visual effects supervisor Paul Lambert believed that brown backgrounds compared to green ones would make the shots more realistic. During wide shots, they used ordinary helicopters and later replaced them with ornithopter models previously filmed against the sand screens using digital technology. The giant sandworms were also created using CGI. According to Lambert, the team spent over a year devising the movements of the monsters and studying the behavior of snakes and worms. The look of the terrifying creatures was based on the appearance of baleen whales. The sand ripple effect that appeared when the worms moved was achieved by placing a vibrating steel plate under the sand. When the worm approached the characters, the plate was set in motion, and the actors' legs sank into the sand. In reality, it was just an 8x8 foot plate, and the vibrating sections were made bigger in post-production. Initially, the crew had planned to use explosives for the same effect, but it turned out to be an impossible task. Still aiming for realism, Villeneuve decided to use natural sounds for the movement of the worms, and eventually, sound designers recorded the sounds of sand displacement using hydrophones in California's Death Valley. Fun fact, Stellan Skarsgård spent almost a third of the filming period in the makeup chair, and according to him, the intimidating appearance of Baron Harkonnen was so impressive not because of his acting, but thanks to the makeup and costumes. Their whole family is quite interesting. After all, one of his 6 sons was Pennywise. Costume designers put a lot of effort not only into Harkonnen's appearance. They created over 1,000 costumes for the movie, and Villeneuve immediately warned the designers to avoid the futuristic style that was often used in science fiction movies. Instead, he asked them to focus on the unique philosophical atmosphere of the film. According to costume designer Jacqueline West, most costumes were inspired by Roman and Greek mythology, as well as medieval culture. Lady Jessica's dress that she was wearing upon arrival on Arrakis was influenced by the attire of women from the Middle East and North Africa. The music was equally important to creating the unique culture of distant planets. Hans Zimmer was one of the first to join the filming crew and even declined to work on the soundtrack for Christopher Nolan's film Tenet because of his love for the novel Dune. The composer did not want the music to resemble his past works, so he used an eclectic set of instruments, unusual for a Western orchestra. Additionally, he spent a week in the desert of Utah, later incorporating the sounds recorded there into the soundtrack. Furthermore, Zimmer mentioned that the idea of using the bagpipe for the musical theme of House Atreides belonged to Villeneuve, for whom the sound of this instrument evoked thoughts of something ancient. Linguist David Peterson was one more person who made a significant contribution to the creation of the otherworldly culture. He developed artificial languages for representatives of several peoples. The main shooting period was completed in July 2019, after which Villeneuve and editor Joe Walker began processing the footage. By the way, in August 2020, the team conducted additional shots in Budapest. A regular post-production period takes about 6 months, but the creators of Dune had as many as 20 months at their disposal. Villeneuve paid special attention to Paul's dreams and visions, for which he specifically prepared over an hour of video material capturing flecks of sunlight. As a result, the editor used them to create striking hallucinations for the characters. Movie mistakes and errors. Despite the lengthy post-production stage, the creators of the film still couldn't avoid most of the common mistakes and inconsistencies. One of the most popular types of movie mistakes here, as in many other films, was the sudden change in the position of characters and various details. For example, in the scene where the Atreides take control of the planet Arrakis, you can notice the table mysteriously changing its location. At the same time, the seal also ended up not where it's supposed to be. The spacecraft rises above the water's surface, but after half a minute finds itself still in the open water. When the doors of the spacecraft open, the faces of the characters are illuminated by bright sunlight. Yet in the following shots, they are shown in the shade. Moreover, a little later, you can notice that in neighboring shots, the light is coming from opposite sides. Then, we see Paul standing, his left shoulder facing the camera, but a couple of seconds later, in a close-up shot, he is turned in the other direction. In one scene, the air balloons are inflated too abruptly and unnaturally, and when the doctor approaches Paul, you can see that he opens the door with his right hand, but in the next shot, he holds a tray with that hand. In the scene where the ornithopter crashes in the desert, it is clearly shown sinking into the sand. However, when the characters come out to the vehicle, we see it on the surface. Moreover, one can notice that the moons of Arrakis are large and located right above the horizon line, but sometimes they suddenly move away and consequently appear smaller. Also, during the fight with Jameis, the blood under Paul's nose keeps appearing and disappearing. Deleted scenes. We don't know for sure which scenes were cut in the final stages of production, since neither a director's cut nor any additional material was released or will ever be released. Denis Villeneuve stated that he doesn't like outtakes and has no intention of publishing them. However, if we examine the script, we can assume which scenes were excluded from the film. Some of them may have been rejected before filming began, while others may have been cut in post-production. It turned out the film could have started with a scene of Duncan's attack on Arrakis, which would have been one of Paul's many visions. Also, the scene with Gom Jabbar, with which Paul was tested before being sent to Arrakis, was shortened. They also deleted several dialogues between Gaius, Helen, and Paul, and a scene where Dr. Yui gave Paul the Orange Catholic Bible, which previously belonged to his wife. By the way, he told Jessica about this Bible in another cutscene. Additionally, they removed a scene where the War Master Gurney Halleck played a 9-string balisette during a banquet, and a part where Paul gifted a horse to a stableman before departing for Arrakis. Unfortunately, viewers also did not see an interesting scene of Paul and Jessica's training, where the mother was teaching her son the art of swordplay. Initially, Dune was meant to be darker and more violent. However, the director later decided to make it up to the young audience and soften many details. For example, in the scene with the prisoners on Salusa Secundus, the victims were supposed to look more terrifying, as confirmed by concept art. Bloopers. Now, we'll be showing you some bloopers, while the off-screen voice is taking a coffee break. Please stay with us. Sorry, there was a mistake. You see, the film turned out to be so good that all the bloopers made it into the final cut. Worldwide recognition. Dune had a long journey to the cinema screens. Initially, the film's release was planned for November 20, 2020, but it was later moved to December 18. Then, the premiere was set for October 1st, 2021, but that's when Batman was supposed to come out. In the summer of 2021, the studio postponed the release to October 2022 to avoid competition with the film No Time to Die. The first screening of the film took place on September 3rd, 2021 at the 78th Venice Film Festival, where it was met with 8-minute ovations. After that, the movie was also presented at the Toronto International Film Festival. At the same time, Warner Bros. Released Dune, along with its other projects of 2021 on the streaming service HBO Max, where it was streamed for a month, causing the film creators dissatisfaction. Villeneuve stated that the company's decision could deprive the film of its chances for box office success, noting that Dune was intended as a grand work meant for viewing in theaters.
Will it be that bad?
You don't get it, do you? You don't really understand the grave nature of what's happening to us.
In December, Dune did return to the limited release and later became available on digital platforms. The director was right to worry about the film's success in theaters. Despite excellent results in the opening weekend, Dune managed to gross only $108 million in the US and Canada, with a production budget of $165 million. In other countries, the film earned $293 million, which at first glance improved the situation, but the film still ended up being unprofitable for Warner Bros. Nevertheless, the box office performance did not prevent Dune from receiving well-deserved recognition from film critics. Most of them praised the movie for its screenplay, scale, atmosphere, and acting. However, some critics still found Villeneuve's work unfinished, dull, and drawn out. Dune was nominated for the most prestigious film awards. The movie received 10 Oscar nominations, winning 6 of them for Best Visual Effects, Soundtrack, Editing, Sound, Production Design, and Cinematography. Also, Dune won prizes in similar categories at the BAFTA Awards, which gave it 11 nominations. The Critics' Choice Award honored the film with prizes for Best Visual Effects, Soundtrack, and Production Design, while the Satellite Award recognized it for Best Cinematography, Editing, Original Score, and Visual Effects. Out of 5 nominations at the Saturn Awards, the film won the prize for Best Makeup, and out of 3 nominations at the Golden Globes, it won the one for the soundtrack by Hans Zimmer. By the way, the latter was also nominated for a Grammy. Additionally, Dune made it to the top 10 films of the year, according to the American Film Institute and newspapers like The Guardian and Empire. However, the lead actors received less attention. Timothée Chalamet and Jason Momoa were nominated for People's Choice Awards for the drama movie Star of the Year, and Zendaya won the Kids' Choice Award for Favorite Female TV Star. There's no official data on the actors' salaries, but some say that Chalamet received a $2.2 million paycheck, Bautista and Momoa earned $2 million each, Ferguson $500,000, Isaac and Nesmalchin $400,000 each, and Brolin, Zendaya, Skarsgård, and Henderson were paid from $175,000 to $350,000 each. Despite the poor box office performance, Warner Brothers has still approved the production of a sequel to Dune, which covers the second part of the first novel. In this movie, Johnny's storyline was significantly expanded, and Florence Pugh and Léa Seydoux and Christopher Walken joined the cast. The film's premiere in the US was repeatedly postponed and finally took place on March 1st, 2024. Moreover, Villeneuve plans to shoot a third film based on the book Dune Messiah and continue working on the HBO Max series Dune the Prophecy, a prequel to the trilogy. Denis Villeneuve managed to delight audiences and critics with his genuine vision of the original book and revive the Dune media franchise. He gave the story new meaning and created a truly unique atmosphere of mysterious worlds.
I must go. That's all I have to say to you.
Won't you stay? We would honor you.
Honor requires that I be elsewhere.
Do you like his interpretation of the science fiction novel?